Hey friends, welcome back to Huge Head Studio. My name is Robbie, and today is Friday the 13th, so I figured why not make a mounted head of everybody's favorite mama's boy, Jason Voorhees. Jason has come in a lot of shapes and sizes throughout the million Friday the 13th movies, but for this sculpt, we're skipping ahead to the look from the third movie, when he finally finds the hockey mask and gets that iconic design. It is also the absolute peak of his look in my opinion. If you don't agree, well, that's fine, but let's break down the look from each movie. In the first movie, well, it's not even Jason, it's just Pam. Best overall movie though. Honestly, it's probably the only good one in the series. Fight me. In the second movie, he's just running around Camp Crystal Lake in a burlap sack. It's a little creepy, sure, but the one eye hole makes it look kinda goofy, and instead of looking like a slasher killer, he looks more like one of those losers with the bags on their heads in Django Unchained. Movies 3 and 4, best of Jason. Even though he randomly shows up with that big hoss build out of nowhere, it's still the coolest look for me. Fifth movie, get that clown out of here. Movies 6 and 7, I mean, they're fine. Some people love it. I think it's starting to do a little too much. Eighth movie, why is he so wet? 9 is just so stupid. And then Jason X, I mean, what even is that? It looks like the weird love child of Eddie from Iron Maiden in the cyber suit from Star Kid. Anyway, we're sticking with the classic look from 3 and 4 with the dirty beat-up hockey mask and my own version of his skin. Kinda like a hybrid of his original look as an innocent boy in the first movie and the wrinkly, deadish look from the later movies. So for now, my plan is to sculpt the face just enough while paying extra attention to the eyes and the sides of the head, since those are the only areas you'll actually see under the mask. So I whipped up some eyes and then threw them in the oven to bake and harden so that I could build on top of them without having to worry about getting them all squished while I worked. I tried to make them look slightly asymmetrical, but probably not enough to make it look intentional. Looking back, I should have gone more Sloth from the Goonies with it, because instead of looking crooked on purpose, they just look like I made an uh-oh. And honestly, he goes through a lot of unintentional look-alike phases from here on out, kinda like all my faces do. And right now, he looks like that ghostly guy from Courage the Cowardly Dog, the one who's complaining about a slab or something, I don't really remember. Or a Basquiat portrait. So, as I said, the original plan was to just sculpt the part of the face that would be visible peeking through or around the mask. But then I figured I needed enough of the face built up so the mask would have enough structure underneath to hold its shape. So I built the cheekbones up a bit and then realized, well, I need at least a blob of clay in place to support the nose, so I added one, but then I just kept detailing and adding, and then eventually got the bright idea of, hey, what if I made the mask removable? And I felt like a genius for about 30 seconds. Until I realized that should have been the obvious choice to begin with. But with the decision made to finish the face, I decided I wanted to make the shape look a little more like the face he had in the original, so I started building up the top of the head with more clay to give it a more rounded, bulbous look. But I accidentally made him look like the gatekeeper from Little Nicky, you know, the guy with boobies on his head, so I carved the head back down a little until I got it closer to the shape that I wanted, and then rolled and blended it smooth. After that, I slapped a little blob of clay on the side of his head and did my best to turn it into something resembling an ear. Ears are my kryptonite. I've said it before, they just don't make sense to me, like after however many years of evolution, this is what we landed on, a weird little cartilage cinnamon roll. Whatever. Anyway, the plan is to make his skin look wrinkled and lumpy and full of texture, so to help with that I squirted some liquid Sculpey all over the face and then used a brush to poke at it and spread it around. Once it's baked, it doesn't look like much, but during painting, we'll hit it with a couple dry brush coats and that texture will really start to pop. Next, I placed some crusty little chiclets into his mouth and then built up the upper and lower lips around them. Like I said, I'm not really following any specific Jason design here. I'm kinda making it up as I go, pulling from a handful of different references to create my own version. I decided I like the more asymmetrical Hills Have Eyes look, so I added a few swollen masses around the mouth. Hopefully that helps it read more like Jason and less like the new Nosferatu. I added some texture to those additions so they fit the rest of the face and then moved on to the neck. The Jason that fits the mask we're about to sculpt is a big old boy. His neck is basically the same width of his head, so he's kind of shaped like a thumb. Or actually more like Edgar from Men in Black. But here at Huge Head Studio we like to exaggerate things a bit and make the heads larger than the body with some caricatured proportions. So once everything's finished, his body will probably end up looking a lot smaller, more like the Jason from the original movie. Once his neck and torso are more or less shaped out, I added some texture and folds to the skin and then smoothed it all out with some rubbing alcohol to give it a softer, more natural look. After that, I added a thin strip of clay that I rolled flat with my pasta maker to make his t-shirt. Which is also the moment I realized the whole Jason from parts 3 and 4 inspiration had completely gone out the window. And now we're trending a lot closer to the look from Freddy vs. Jason, just without the little patches of stringy hair. But that's okay, and honestly it should have been expected because when I'm in charge, literally nothing ever goes to plan, so we just take whatever mistakes or changes that happen along the way and claim them as happy accidents. Now all that's left to do here is add some wrinkles and folds and damage to the clothing as well as some liquid sculpty texture to the neck to tie it all together, and we're finally ready for the mask, which is so exciting. To make the mask, I rolled some super sculpty flat and then slapped it onto the face so I could cut it into the right shape. Then I pressed it down to leave a little imprint on the underside, which helped me figure out where the eye should go. After that, I pulled the clay off and then punched out the eye holes and then reshaped them into that rounded triangle shape. Once the eye holes looked good enough, I added the little nose bump and blended it into the mask. After the nose is blended and nice and smooth, I punch out about 1,000,000 holes into the mask, which is awesome because the pattern of the holes immediately makes the mask look unmistakably Jason. After that, all that's left to do is add a little wear and tear to the mask, and then we're finally ready to paint. I kick off the paint with a thin, loose base of dark brownish red. I like working from dark to light, especially since I plan on dry brushing on the highlights later. Does that mean I always paint this way? No. Even though I've been making art my entire life, I still completely forget how to do the simplest things from time to time. But this time I actually got it right. Once the red was dry, I followed it up with a darkish, tannish color. Yes, that's the official name. Since the sculpt ended up leaning more toward the Freddy vs. Jason version, I thought, why not embrace it and go for that icky grayish undead horror movie skin? So I kept building upon the red and then darkish tannish with lighter coats of grayish tan, paying extra attention to all the high points to help the skin and all of its wrinkles and imperfections stand out. Hopefully this shows how working from dark to light really helps. All the recessed areas stayed dark and shadowed like they should, so all I have to do is push the light onto those high points to make the paint job look believable. Next, I test out the first dry brush coat to see how the texture turned out. I'll do more coats momentarily, but while that one dries, I go ahead and add the whites to the eyes and teeth. I make them look good and grungy before continuing on with the dry brushing. So what I'm doing here is putting a little bit of paint on my brush and then dabbing most of it away so that the brush has the minimum amount of paint on it. Then I lightly brush that paint over the surface of the model, which coats all the high points while leaving the recesses untouched. It's kind of a lazy technique, but man, the results can be super satisfying. After that, I add a tiny bit of color to his eyes to create the iris using a ball stylus and then fill in the big black pupils. I then give him a few quick washes of a fleshy pink and a yellow to break up the gray a little and give the skin some variation, just trying to add a touch of realism. With the face pretty much done, I get to work on his clothes that I paint in Jason's favorite colors, which are apparently dark green and blue nasty deep lake watercolors. While the figure is off the mount, I go ahead and paint it black. I thought about adding a little something to the mount, but ultimately I like the idea of the figure being able to fade into the black background like the poster for the 2009 remake. Once the figure is back on the mount, I add some highlights and shadows to the folds on his clothing and then hit it with some grunge because Jason hangs out in murky water a lot. Once the clothes are done, the figure is complete and now we're finally ready for the mask. I paint the underside black so that it doesn't distract from the front or the facial features, and then give the front a base coat of black as well. I then follow that up with a few coats of the cream color for Jason's mask, and on the final coat I dab at it with a flat brush to create a bit of texture to hide the paint strokes and give the mask a more realistic look. Next, I add the iconic red accents, then start adding a few layers of grunge and grime to make the mask look aged and worn, because the expected look of a slasher is no different from the expected look of a tattoo artist. I want my artist to be covered in tattoos so you know they love their craft, and I want my slasher's mask to be nasty and beat up. And now that the mask is nice and icky, that means the sculpt is done and Jason is ready for the wall. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe to see what kind of nonsense we get into next time. But that about does it for this one, so thanks for watching and happy Friday the 13th. Go watch something spooky.